Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel. The human ship emerged from hyperspace near the edges of the Jarko Empire. Its sleek design contrasted sharply with the brutal architecture of the alien vessels that patrolled the sector. Jack leaned forward in his seat. His face was set with determination. The challenge he had prepared for would test his limits. He was about to face the galaxy's most feared warrior. Kael'ara of the Jarko was known as an unstoppable force. Her victories were countless. Her reputation struck terror in all who opposed her. But Jack was not here to bow in fear. He was here to prove that humanity could rise to any challenge. Jack's mission was clear. Deliver a message of defiance. Engage Kael'ara in combat. Survive. His ship's AI announced the presence of a massive Jarko battleship. It loomed like a dark mountain against the stars. Jack sent out the PI-prepared signal. The response came quickly. A guttural voice demanded to know the human's purpose. Jack stated his intent plainly. He wished to challenge Kael'ara. The voice fell silent for a moment. Then came laughter that echoed through the communication system like rolling thunder. The Jarko flagship opened a docking bay. Jack maneuvered his ship inside. As he stepped out, towering warriors surrounded him. Their yellow eyes burned with disdain. Jack's human stature seemed insignificant among the giant Jarko. But his presence was unshaken. His confidence was unyielding. They escorted him to the ship's arena. A circular pit awaited him. Thousands of Jarko filled the stands. Their roars created a deafening symphony of anticipation. Jack stepped into the center of the pit. His heart pounded. This was the moment he had trained for. On the far side, Kael'ara emerged. Her armor gleamed under the arena's harsh lights. Her presence dominated the space. She was taller than any other Jarko Jack had seen. Her movements were fluid yet powerful. Her gaze locked onto Jack with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. The crowd fell silent as the two warriors faced each other. The Jarko shouted a signal. The fight began. Kael'ara moved with speed that defied her size. She closed the distance between them in an instant. Jack barely evaded her first strike. Her weapon cleaved the air where he had stood. He countered with a swift kick to her side. His agility was his greatest asset. Kael'ara growled and adjusted her stance. Jack's strikes were precise. He aimed for the weak points in her armor. She absorbed the blows with minimal reaction. The crowd's excitement grew as the fight escalated. Jack knew he was an underdog. The Jarko had likely expected him to fall in moments. But he held his ground. His movements were fluid and calculated. He used Kael'ara's size against her. Each time she attacked, he evaded and countered. Her frustration became evident. She roared and unleashed a barrage of strikes. Jack dodged and blocked, but her strength was overwhelming. Kael'ara's weapon grazed his shoulder. Pain shot through him. He rolled away and regained his footing. His resolve was unbroken. Kael'ara smiled faintly. There was respect in her eyes. She had not expected a human to endure this long. Jack tightened his grip on his blade. The fight was far from over. Kael'ara lunged forward again. Her weapon cut through the air with deadly precision. Jack sidestepped and countered with a strike aimed at her leg. His blade connected but barely pierced her armor. She growled and swung her weapon in a wide arc. Jack ducked just in time. The force of her strike sent a shockwave through the arena. Dust and debris scattered as the crowd roared in approval. Jack took a deep breath. His training had prepared him for this. Every move was calculated. He could not afford a single mistake. Kael'ara's strength was unmatched, but her aggression made her predictable. Jack used her momentum against her. Each time she attacked, he evaded and struck back. His blows were not meant to injure. They were meant to wear her down. Kael'ara's strikes became more forceful. Her frustration was evident. She was used to opponents crumbling under her power. But Jack was different. His endurance matched his determination. Each time she thought she had him cornered, he found a way out. The crowd's cheers grew louder. They admired strength and skill above all else. Jack was earning their respect. Kael'ara paused for a moment. She studied Jack with piercing eyes. She adjusted her grip on her weapon. Her stance shifted slightly. Jack recognized the change. She was adapting. The fight was about to become even more dangerous. Kael'ara charged with renewed vigor. Her movements were faster and more precise. Jack struggled to keep up. He blocked one strike, but missed another. Her blade grazed his side. Blood seeped from the wound. He winced, but did not falter. Jack knew he needed to change tactics. He focused on her legs. Her size made her top heavy. He aimed a series of strikes at her knees and ankles. Kael'ara stumbled slightly but recovered quickly. She roared and unleashed a powerful kick. Jack was thrown backward. He hit the ground hard. The air was knocked from his lungs. Kael'ara approached with deliberate steps. Her shadow loomed over him. Jack forced himself to stand. His vision blurred for a moment. He steadied himself and tightened his grip on his blade. Kael'ara smirked. She admired his resilience. Jack charged at her with everything he had. He feinted to the left and struck to the right. His blade found a weak point in her armor. It pierced her side. Kael'ara grunted in pain. She swung her weapon but missed. The crowd erupted in chaos. They had never seen Kael'ara injured. Jack pressed his advantage. He landed another strike on her shoulder. Kael'ara roared in fury. She grabbed him with her massive hand and threw him across the arena. Jack crashed into the wall. Pain coursed through his body. He struggled to stand. Kael'ara approached once more. Her expression was a mixture of anger and respect. Jack knew he was reaching his limit, but he refused to give up. This was more than a fight. It was a test of will. Kael'ara stopped a few steps away. She raised her weapon. The crowd fell silent. Jack prepared for her next move. The outcome of this battle would determine the fate of more than just the two warriors. It would decide the future of their peoples. Kael'ara's weapon descended with deadly precision. Jack rolled to the side at the last moment. Her blade struck the ground with a deafening crash. Dust rose around them, momentarily obscuring the view. Jack used the cover to gain some distance. His breathing was ragged. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest. Yet he refused to stop. His resolve burned brighter than the pain. Kael'ara straightened and turned to face him. Her expression showed no fear, only determination. Jack tightened his grip on his blade. He knew he could not match her strength, but he could outthink her. He moved with calculated steps, circling her. Kael'ara mirrored his movements, her yellow eyes watching his every motion. The crowd's roars grew louder. They chanted Kael'ara's name, their voices shaking the arena. Yet some began to chant another name. Jack, the human, had earned their respect. His resilience and skill defied their expectations. Jack heard the chants but did not let them distract him. His focus remained on his opponent. Kael'ara lunged again, her movements faster than before. Jack dodged, but barely. Her blade grazed his arm. Blood trickled down, but he ignored it. He countered with a strike aimed at her side. His blade struck true, finding a gap in her armor. Kael'ara growled and swung her weapon in retaliation. Jack ducked and rolled away. The fight dragged on, each moment feeling like an eternity. Jack's movements grew slower. His strength was fading. Kael'ara showed no signs of stopping. Her attacks came with relentless force. Yet Jack noticed something. Her strikes were becoming less precise. She was tiring too. The realization gave him hope. He adjusted his strategy, focusing on evasion and counterattacks. Kael'ara charged again. Jack sidestepped and struck at her exposed leg. She stumbled but did not fall. She roared in anger and swung her weapon with both hands. Jack leapt backward, narrowly avoiding the deadly arc. He landed unsteadily, his legs shaking from exhaustion. Kael'ara advanced with measured steps. Her confidence remained unbroken. Jack reached for the small device on his belt. It was his last resort, a tool designed to disorient. He activated it, and a blinding flash filled the arena. Kael'ara staggered, momentarily blinded. The crowd erupted in confusion. Jack seized the opportunity. He charged at her with all his remaining strength. His blade found its mark, piercing her shoulder. Kael'ara roared in pain, but did not fall. She swung wildly, forcing Jack to retreat. Her vision cleared, and she locked eyes with him. Blood trickled from her wounds. Yet her resolve matched his. She raised her weapon and charged. Jack prepared to meet her head-on. The clash was inevitable. Two warriors, bound by the same unyielding spirit, would decide the outcome with this final exchange. Jack braced himself as Kael'ara closed the distance. Her weapon swung with devastating power. He blocked the strike, his arms trembling under the impact. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed. Kael'ara pushed forward, her strength threatening to overwhelm him. Jack gritted his teeth and held his ground. The crowd roared, their chants merging into a cacophony of sound. The air in the arena was electric. Every Jarkor warrior leaned forward, their yellow eyes fixed on the battle. Jack felt their gaze, but paid it no mind. His focus was entirely on Kael'ara. She was relentless, her strikes coming faster and harder. Yet Jack noticed the cracks in her armor, both figuratively and literally. Kael'ara's movements, while powerful, began to lose their precision. Her breathing grew heavier. Jack capitalized on her momentary lapses. He dodged her strikes with increasing frequency. Each evasion brought him closer to her vulnerable points. His strikes, though small, began to add up. Kael'ara's armor bore the marks of his blade. Blood seeped from the gaps. Kael'ara growled, her frustration evident. She swung her weapon in a wide arc. Jack ducked and countered with a powerful strike to her exposed side. Kael'ara stumbled, her footing unsteady. The crowd gasped. This was a sight they had never witnessed. Kael'ara, their undefeated champion, was on the defensive. Jack pressed his advantage. He delivered a series of quick strikes, each aimed at a weak point. Kael'ara blocked most, but not all. She roared and charged at him, her sheer force driving him back. Jack rolled away and rose to his feet. His chest heaved with the exertion. Sweat dripped from his brow. His vision blurred slightly, but he shook his head to clear it. Kael'ara stood still for a moment. Her piercing gaze locked onto Jack. There was something new in her eyes. It was not anger or disdain. It was respect. She adjusted her stance, raising her weapon with both hands. Jack understood the gesture. This was her way of acknowledging him as an equal. The next exchange would decide everything. Jack steadied his breathing. He gripped his blade tightly. His mind raced through every possibility. Kael'ara charged, her speed astonishing despite her injuries. Jack met her halfway. Their weapons clashed with a thunderous impact. The force and shockwaves through the arena. Dust and debris swirled around them. Kael'ara's strength was undeniable. Jack felt his arms straining under the pressure. Yet he held on. He shifted his weight and redirected her momentum. Kael'ara stumbled forward, momentarily off balance. Jack saw his chance. He delivered a powerful strike to her back. Kael'ara fell to one knee. The crowd fell silent. Jack stood over her, his blade poised for the final blow. Yet he hesitated. Kael'ara looked up at him. Her expression was calm, almost serene. Jack lowered his blade. The fight was over. The victor had been decided not by death, but by strength of will. Kael'ara remained on one knee, her gaze locked on Jack. Around them, the crowd erupted into a mixture of confusion, disbelief, and grudging admiration. The Jarkor warriors, known for their disdain for weakness, now found themselves witnessing an outcome that defied their expectations. A human had stood against their greatest warrior and lived. Not only lived, but emerged victorious in spirit. Jack extended his hand toward Kael'ara. His body ached from the grueling battle. Every fibre of his being wanted to collapse. But he refused to show weakness. Kael'ara glanced at his outstretched hand. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, to the astonishment of every onlooker, she took it. Her massive hand engulfed his. Jack pulled with all his strength, helping her rise to her feet. The silence in the arena grew heavier. Kael'ara turned to face her people. Her yellow eyes swept across the crowd. Slowly, she raised her weapon high above her head. A gesture of respect, a gesture of acknowledgement. She then turned back to Jack and nodded. No words were spoken, yet an understanding passed between them. Two warriors, two equals. The Jarkor crowd, initially hesitant, began to roar. It was not the wild, bloodthirsty chant of battle. It was something deeper, a recognition of strength. Of honor. Jack stood tall, his chest heaving. He had not come here to conquer. He had come to prove that humanity was worthy. And he had succeeded. Kael'ara gestured for him to follow. Together, they exited the arena. The corridors of the Jarkor battleship were silent. The warriors they passed stepped aside, their gazes filled with curiosity and respect. Jack felt the weight of the moment. He had challenged their traditions. And in doing so, he had opened a door to something greater. Kael'ara led him to a vast chamber. A council of elder Sharko awaited them. Their stern expressions softened as Kael'ara spoke. She recounted the battle in their native tongue. Though Jack could not understand the words, he felt their significance. The elders listened intently. When Kael'ara finished, they turned their piercing gazes on Jack. One of the elders stepped forward. She was ancient, her armor worn from countless battles. Her voice was firm yet filled with wisdom. She declared that Kael'ara's acknowledgement of the human was binding. Jack had earned their respect, not as a conqueror, but as a warrior, a representative of humanity's indomitable spirit. Kael'ara placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. She spoke in a language he could understand. You are unlike any I have faced. Today, you proved your kind's worth. Let this mark the beginning of something new. Jack nodded, his expression resolute. He had not come here seeking war. He had come seeking understanding. And now he had found it. As Jack prepared to leave, Kael'ara gave him a parting gift. A small insignia, a symbol of Sharko honor. She told him it was a rare mark, given only to those who had earned their place among them. Jack accepted it with gratitude. He knew its significance extended far beyond this moment. Back aboard his ship, Jack looked out at the vastness of space. The insignia rested in his palm, a reminder of what he had achieved. His mission was complete. Yet he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity and the Sharko had taken their first step towards something greater. Not as enemies, but as equals, as allies. The stars beckoned, and Jack smiled. The future was uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, it felt full of hope. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.